She was born with a title fit for a princess, yet she has spent her entire life being called simply Lady. For more than 2 decades, one young royal has quietly stood apart from convention, choosing modesty over majesty in a family built on ceremony. Now, as the monarchy continues to evolve and questions swirl about who will carry its future, a new conversation has emerged. Could Lady Louise Windsor, daughter of Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, finally step into the HRH title she was entitled to from birth? The answer is far more complicated than a simple yes or no, and it says something profound about how the modern royal family balances tradition, privacy, and public duty. To understand why this question even exists, we have to go back to 1999, the year Prince Edward married Sophie Rhys-Jones. Before their wedding, the couple made a decision that quietly reshaped expectations for their future children. According to royal historians and widely reported accounts, Queen Elizabeth II agreed that any children born to Edward and Sophie would not automatically use the HRH style, despite technically being entitled to it under the letters patent of 1917. This meant that when Louise arrived in 2003, followed by her younger brother James in 2007, both children were raised with courtesy titles reflecting their father's earldom rather than the grander princess or prince designation. This decision was not simply a personal preference. Royal biographers, including those who have written extensively about the Wessex family, have suggested that Edward and Sophie wanted their children to grow up with a sense of normalcy, shielded as much as possible from the intense scrutiny that comes with a full royal title. It was a philosophy rooted in observation. Sophie and Edward had watched the pressures faced by other young royals, and they hoped a quieter upbringing might allow their children room to breathe, to attend school without armies of photographers, and to eventually choose their own paths. For years, that plan appeared to work exactly as intended. Louise grew up largely out of the tabloid spotlight, attending Marlborough House School and later St. Mary's Con, a private school in Wiltshire, where she studied without the constant presence of media attention that following other royal cousins might have brought. Her love of carriage driving became public knowledge, largely because of its connection to her grandfather, Prince Philip, who was passionate about the sport for decades. Louise's participation in this niche equestrian discipline, following his footsteps, offered the public a rare and touching glimpse into a family tradition passed quietly between generations. As Louise grew older, public curiosity naturally shifted from her childhood to her future. When she turned 18 in 2021, speculation began to build about whether she would step into a more visible royal role, and whether that role might eventually include the HRH designation she had never used. Royal commentators, including those who cover the family for outlets like The Telegraph and Hello magazine, noted that Louise seemed to be following a path similar to her mother's, one defined by steady, less publicized support of the monarchy rather than headline-grabbing appearances. In 2022, Louise made a choice that surprised some observers and reinforced others' expectations entirely. Rather than stepping fully into royal life immediately after finishing school, she enrolled at the University of St. Andrews, the same institution where her cousin Prince William had met Catherine, now the Princess of Wales. Louise chose to study English, and importantly, she opted to use the name Louise Windsor during her time there, deliberately downplaying her royal connections in an academic environment. This decision, widely reported by British media, reflected a consistent theme throughout her life, an apparent preference for privacy over prominence. Yet even as Louise pursued her education quietly, the broader royal family was undergoing significant change. The death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022 marked not only the end of an era, but also a structural shift within the monarchy itself. King Charles III ascended the throne with a publicly stated vision of a slimmed-down monarchy, a phrase that had circulated in royal reporting for years but took on new urgency once he became king. This vision emphasized fewer working royals, more focus on senior family members, and a reduction in the number of individuals receiving official royal duties, and by extension, official titles. Within this context, the question of Louise's future title takes on new significance. If the monarchy is genuinely narrowing its focus to senior royals, it could mean Louise remains outside that structure entirely, continuing life largely as a private citizen who occasionally supports family engagements. Alternatively, Some royal watchers argue that as working members of the family age or step back, younger relatives like Louise and her brother James could be called upon to take on more formal responsibilities, a shift that might eventually prompt reconsideration of their titles. It's worth noting that any change to Louise's title would not be automatic. According to constitutional and royal historians, adopting the HRH style would likely require a fresh decision, either by King Charles himself or through updated letters patent, since the original 1999 arrangement was a personal agreement rather than a permanent legal restriction. This distinction matters enormously. Unlike titles enshrined through legislation, the Wessex children's naming arrangement was always understood to be flexible, dependent on family preference rather than fixed law. That flexibility is precisely why speculation continues to resurface every few years. Adding another layer to this conversation is Prince Edward's own title. In 2023, King Charles formally granted his younger brother the title Duke of Edinburgh, a title that had been held by their late father, Prince Philip, for over 7 decades. This transition was widely covered by royal correspondents, including Camilla Tominey and Robert Hartman, who have both written extensively about succession dynamics within the family. With Edward now holding a senior ducal title, some commentators have questioned whether his children's positions within the family hierarchy might eventually be reassessed, even if no formal announcement has confirmed this. Public sentiment surrounding Louise has remained largely positive throughout these years of speculation. She has been described by royal biographers as down-to-earth, hard-working, and notably devoted to her education and her interests, particularly carriage driving, which she has continued to pursue at a competitive level. Her demeanor during public appearances, especially alongside her grandmother, the late Queen, drew frequent praise, with many observers noting the closeness of their relationship. Louise was seen accompanying Queen Elizabeth on various occasions, and after the Queen's death, footage of Louise walking behind her grandmother's coffin resonated deeply with the public, symbolizing quiet dignity amid profound loss. Despite this visibility during moments of national significance, Louise has continued to avoid the trappings typically associated with a full HRH role. She has not taken on a slate of official royal patronages in the way her cousins Princess Beatrice or Princess Eugenie have, nor has she stepped into consistent public duties on behalf of the crown. This restraint appears deliberate, consistent with the values her parents instilled from the very beginning. Whether this approach will continue indefinitely, or whether circumstances will eventually necessitate change, remains an open question that even close observers of the monarchy cannot answer with certainty. Some royal experts suggest that if Louise eventually completes her university studies and chooses a career outside full-time royal duties, the question of her title may become largely symbolic rather than practical, since she would not require the additional public profile that comes with the HRH designation. Others argue that as the monarchy continues to shrink in working numbers, every extra pair of hands matters, and Louise's proven composure during public and ceremonial moments could make her a natural candidate for expanded responsibilities in years to come. Both interpretations remain valid, and neither has been confirmed or denied by Buckingham Palace. What makes this story so compelling isn't merely the technical possibility of a title change. It's the deeper reflection it offers on how modern royalty navigates the tension between individual identity and institutional necessity. Louise represents a generation of royals raised with unprecedented awareness of public scrutiny, social media exposure, and evolving expectations about privacy. Her family's original decision to shield her from an HRH title wasn't simply about avoiding paparazzi attention. It was a statement about prioritizing personal development over inherited status, a philosophy that feels increasingly relevant in an era where the monarchy itself is reconsidering its role in modern British life. As King Charles continues to shape his reign around efficiency, relevance, and public trust, decisions about lesser-discussed royals like Louise may carry more weight than they initially appear to. Whether or not she ever accepts the HRH title, her story reflects something universal about choice, identity, and the quiet power of forging one's own path even within an institution defined by rigid tradition. Louise's journey, whichever direction it ultimately takes, reminds us that titles, however grand, do not define character. In choosing modesty for over 2 decades, she has already demonstrated something many with far greater privilege never learn. That true significance often lies not in the name you're given, but in how you choose to live regardless of it.